What's going on, guys? It's fight season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about UFC 306 last night at the Las Vegas Sphere. It was an absolute banger of an event, start to finish, and there were so many different types of fights on that card, so many bangers of fights, a couple boring fights, but the main event didn't live up to what we thought. It wasn't that exciting of a fight, but also Sean O'Malley got exposed by Merab Dvalishvili, the incredible wrestler. Merab went in there for 5 rounds straight and absolutely dominated O'Malley, took him to the ground at will, threw strikes at will, and he was too elusive and just too sporadic for O'Malley to track down. As Dean Thomas said in that standpoint, he said it was like trying to hit a butterfly in a hurricane in an absolute incredible way, concerning of how fast Merab was moving. But we'll get into all the fights on the main card. We'll kind of break those down and talk about how they occurred last night at UFC 306. Right before I jump into the video, can you guys please leave a like, comment, and subscribe? That's the best way to help support the channel. We are so close to reaching 1,000 subscribers. We're like 10 subscribers away. So if you guys could smash the subscribe button if you haven't already, that would mean absolutely so very much. And while you're down there, turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified when UFC content releases. Well, but with no further ado, let's break down UFC 306 and all of its fights that happened last night. So last night, the first thing I want to get into before the fights was the atmosphere of the UFC 306 Sphere. It was an incredible thing. They had the Jumbotron playing the little movies. It was so immersive for everyone to watch, and it was so incredible to hit on. I was so impressed of how Dana White put this event together. I know he said it was going to be a one-off, but Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier were always talking about how amazing the environment was for the event, and it was something that I truly think the UFC should do again, considering it was the biggest gate in UFC history at the Sphere last night at UFC 306, O'Malley v. Dvalishvili. But jumping into that main event fight, O'Malley versus Dvalishvili, Merab Dvalishvili went in there and absolutely exposed Sean O'Malley. He just said that Sean O'Malley's not going to be able to strike with him at all. He went in there, took him down at will, and just absolutely gassed him out in that fight. The champion was so demoralized going into that 4th and 5th round to where he really couldn't get a hold of Merab Dvalishvili like he said he was. He was making all these funny skits saying that he can defend the takedowns, and Sean O'Malley was actually doing good early on in the fight, but he just couldn't get back up because of Merab's pressure going on and on and on. Now Merab's takedowns were getting a little bit worse and worse and worse because he was shooting for farther distance, but the constant movement that Merab had was too much for Sean O'Malley to track down. Sean O'Malley was looking too much for that just absolute kill shot in that fight, and I think that was the thing that was hampering him, considering that Merab he doesn't have a great chin. He's got rocked so many times into the UFC by Henry Cejudo and Marlon Moraes, but Sean O'Malley was looking too much for that kill shot. He was looking too much into getting that finish, which I think really hampered his ability of getting the win. But ultimately, I do think that Merab Dvalishvili is going to go and talk more about this fight. I think Sean O'Malley is going to have to come back and fight someone soon. I think a Henry Cejudo fight does make sense, or a Song Yadong fight. Either one of those fights does make sense, even though they both lost. I know Peter Yan is probably going to take on Davison Figueiredo at UFC 310, I believe. But ultimately, Sean O'Malley looked really bad last night. He looked genuinely awful. Merab Dvalishvili went in there and did what he said he was going to do, get the win, and I think Sean O'Malley absolutely got exposed last night by someone who, yes, has a great gas tank, and yes, has not great striking, but he was going in there and kind of piecing up Sean O'Malley because of how sporadic he was on the feet last night. Like I said, Sean O'Malley's going to have to come back and get a win. The Sugar era is technically over inside the UFC, but I do think that Sean O'Malley can possibly beat Merab Dvalishvili again if these two individuals fight once more. I just think that Merab's gas tank was too much for O'Malley this time, and I genuinely think Sean O'Malley overestimated the challenge that was Merab Dvalishvili. Okay, in the co-main event, it was an absolute domination from Valentina Shevchenko over Alexa Grasso. Now, in the co-main event, it also wasn't a very fun fight. The only little bit of fun that was in this fight was Alexa Grasso being able to throw up submissions on her back. She threw up, I think, an omoplata. She threw up an arm bar. She threw up an arm triangle, a body triangle. She did a lot of different things, but it wasn't like she wasn't doing that much for the entire fight. Valentina Shevchenko absolutely outclassed her last night and showed why the Kazakhstan's best female fighter in the UFC, the best female flyweight in the UFC is Valentina Shevchenko, in my opinion, and it has been like that for the past couple of years. She got caught in a neck crank at UFC 285, but in that fight at UFC Noche last year, she definitely won that bout. Now, Valentina Shevchenko is probably going to take on Manion Ferro next, which is a good fight, but I just genuinely think this was one of the more boring fights on the card. It was a fight that was a technical masterclass by Valentina, and it was super impressive to see. Grasso just looked absolutely starstruck out there by the lights, but it was one of those things that truly, I think Valentina is happy to reclaim her crown. I feel like she's been confident that she's always been the greatest UFC flyweight in the organization, but truly, Valentina will take on Ferro next in a hopefully closer fight than this one with Grasso. And now we go to the featured bout on this card in Diego Lopez versus Brian Ortega. And Diego Lopez last night looked amazing in that fight. He was absolutely killing Brian Ortega in that first round. He dropped Ortega with like, I don't know how long it was into the fight, maybe like 15 seconds, 20 seconds with that absolutely crazy jab hook combo that sent Ortega to the mat. Diego Lopez, though, is one of those fighters that the only thing that does scare me is he's such a fast starter that I don't know if he burns himself out. So going up against a 5-round war against someone like Ilia Topuria, I don't know if he could really go in there and win that bout. Now, Diego Lopez is such a good grappler. He's such a good fighter. And I knew beating Brian Ortega was one of those things that Diego Lopez had every single ability to do. Lopez now is either going to get a title shot or he's going to get a #1 contender fight with the winner of Aljamain Sterling and Movsar Evloev. Surely that is going to be a great fight either way. I think Lopez is one of the best fighters inside the UFC. He is so fun to watch. He's so powerful, so technical. He swings like a bat out of hell every single time he's in the UFC octagon, and he is one of my most exciting fighters to watch time in and time out, especially since that he is now in the top 3 of the UFC featherweight division, and he is on his way to granting himself his first ever title shot for the featherweight gold. Now we go on to the Daniel Zellhuber versus Eston Ribovic fight. It was a technical masterclass by both individuals in this fight. Ribovic ended up getting the split decision win over Zellhuber, and I did think that that was the correct decision. I thought that Zellhuber, I think it was won round 2, Ribovic won round 1, and then absolutely annihilated Zellhuber in that that third round where he was kind of just trying to stay alive within that fight. Really, Esteban Ribovic is a great fighter inside the UFC. He's had some other fights. He knocked out Terrence McKinney, I believe. And Daniel Zellhuber is also a great up-and-coming prospect. So this was genuinely one of the best fights on the card of the entire night. I really think that Daniel Zellhuber is a great fighter. I think that he'll be back in force. I think that this is going to be a great learning experience for him. But Eston Ribovic needs to get a top 15 lightweight fighter right now. And the last fight I want to talk about is Ode Osbourne versus Ronaldo Rodriguez. I was watching this fight last night, and it was an incredible fight. Rodriguez got cracked in that first round by Ode, and he just somehow came back to life. Like, I don't know, it was the Mexican Triforce power in him last night. I don't know what he did. Like, he got absolutely annihilated in that first round. He got sat down. He looked like he was out. And all of a sudden, when he was fighting, he was absolutely just fighting with that warrior spirit of Mexico. He said that he was not going to lose this fight, and he just did not lose. He looked absolutely amazing out there. He had a fight that was genuinely so impressive. He just would not stop coming forward, and that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen inside the UFC octagon. He 100% told himself that he wouldn't lose, and I think Ode Osbourne had a great style to beat him. He looked a lot faster than him, but he definitely did get out grappled in that fight, and I did think that Ode did win though. I did have Ode winning that third round. Now, it was a very close round, and I'm not mad with Ronaldo Rodriguez winning the fight. I think that Ode on the feet did a little bit more, and the takedown in that third round did end up giving him the victory, but Ronaldo Rodriguez 100% is a worthy opponent of winning that fight, and 100% deserved to get the win at UFC Noche. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili, Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso, Diego Lopez and Brian Ortega, and all the other fights on UFC Noche. UFC 306 was a massive success for the UFC organization. It was an absolute massive gate by over $22 million that they took in, and it was an absolutely crazy event that would have been had. Dana White said it would be the only event held at the Las Vegas Sphere, and I 100% can understand it considering all the work that was put in and all the different avenues that you had to go down through just to be able to get this fight to even occurring. They went over and beyond, above the top, and I genuinely think that that was the card and the fight that took over Las Vegas that day. The Sphere was a one-time shot, one of the best events ever, and I truly think that the Merab Dvalishvili's performance will 100% go down in history as one of the most memorable performances considering the atmosphere and the sphere around it. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.